أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu for all the listeners.
Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Alhamdulillah. Shanu, we are talking about the people of Israel. Who is Israel? Yaqub alayhi salam. Who is the prophet during this time? We are talking about few incidents. Who is the prophet now?
Musa alayhi salam.
Musa alayhi salam is the prophet. Now, among those people, there was a wealthy man at that time. He had lots of wealth, but he didn't have any children. As a result, his nephew was going to inherit his properties. But nephew got very greedy, and he cunningly, what happened was, he wanted that all the wealth immediately. So he ended up killing his uncle. He killed his uncle in the middle of the night, and then he took the body and left it in one of the people's in front of their house. And next day morning, this guy, the nephew, made a big scene out of it, saying that somebody killed my uncle, and the people all gathered and they divided into two groups, someone supporting the nephew, somebody supporting the other person and all that. So while the fight was about to break, one wise man among them said, "Look guys, we have a prophet of Allah amongst us. Why can't we just go and ask him?" So they went and asked Musa alayhi salam, saying that this is the situation, we need to know who is the killer. Musa alayhi salam went to the mountain where he normally goes to communicate with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What was the name of that mountain?
Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai. So he came back saying that, "O people, Allah asks you to slaughter a cow." Now people they said, "Oh Musa, are you kidding us?" Then Musa got upset. Musa said, because Musa alayhi salam was conveying the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and people are taking it as a joke. He said, "I seek refuge in Allah from being people of ignorance. You just do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do." Then they said, "Oh Musa, go back and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is this cow?" Then Musa alayhi salam went back, came again saying that Allah says, it is a cow which is not too old, not too young, it's in between. So what is the best thing they could have done at this time?
Slaughter a cow.
Find a cow, just slaughter it and obey the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But they said, "Oh Musa, we are still confused. What is the color of that cow?" Then Musa had to go and come back and say that it is yellow in color, very attractive to the people who look at it. Then they said to Musa, "Oh Musa, all the cows are looking similar. Innal Baqara tashaba alayna. Everything looks similar or it's a bit vague. So go back and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more about it." And Musa alayhi salam went back and came back and said, "Look, Allah says this cow has not been used for agriculture purposes, like watering or tilling the earth and all that. And it is perfect in the sense it doesn't have any defects." Eventually they said, "Oh, al-ana jita bilak. Now you came with the truth." Then they ended up finding that cow, which was in the possession of a boy who hasn't used that particular cow for any agriculture or any purposes and all that. But they had a challenge now, because their boy didn't want to sell the cow unless the boy said, "I need this weight of the skin of this cow in gold." Gold is a very precious metal, and they had to spend a lot of money to get that particular cow. So basically what we learn from this incident is they made it more and more complicated by asking too many questions. They could have easily slaughtered one cow, any cow, and obeyed the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Eventually they did it. Allah described this situation, فَذَبَوْا وَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. They almost didn't do it. Allah said they made it so difficult or complicated for themselves. Then, coming to the point, Allah said, "Okay, now you take a piece of flesh from that dead cow and then strike this man who is already dead," which they did. And when they did that, a miracle happened, where that man whom everyone knew that he is dead stood up, became alert and communicating. And then obviously people asked, "Who killed you?" And then he pointed his finger to the nephew, which was a surprise for most of them, obviously. And then after a while he died. So this gives us a lot of lessons. One is, can we list some of the lessons we learned from this story?
Don't be greedy.
Don't be greedy, because the nephew was very greedy. You could have got all the wealth when the uncle was naturally died, so you didn't want to wait. So first of all, we need to be patient. We shouldn't be greedy on any material wealth of this world. Number one. What is number two?
Number two, if Allah asks you to do something, just do it.
If Allah commands you to do something, you don't ask what is the logic behind it, why it is Allah is saying that. You don't do that. You just obey it. Okay, number two, very good. Number three, yeah, no worries, I'll explain to that. Number three is, there is a segment of Jews who still don't believe that there is a resurrection and all that kind of stuff is still possible. And around that time also, they were the people who didn't believe in, do you know what is resurrection?
Day of Judgment.
Day of Judgment means coming to life after death. That is resurrection. They didn't want to believe that. They did not believe. Allah is demonstrating that if Allah wants to bring life back to someone, Allah can do that. On the Day of Judgment, that's what's happening. Everyone is dead by that time, just before the Day of Judgment. But Allah makes everyone come back to life. But people feel like, oh, that's they don't want to believe it. They feel like it's some kind of a story or a fiction and all that. Allah showed in front of their eyes how Allah does that. The man was dead. Everyone knew that he was dead, but he came back to life. You understand? So these are the few lessons we learn from these stories. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those people who sincerely obeying without any questioning.
Ameen.
Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.